Good evening, everyone. My name is Harris M. Berger. I'm director of MMaP, the Research Center for the Study of Music, Media, and Place here at Memorial University of Newfoundland. And I'm so happy to welcome all of you to this, the culminating event in Good as a Concert, a festival of story and song. This has been a wonderful day. We had two great sessions of music and narrative as well by fabulous group of performers, as well as a song circle, which also had a fabulous group of performers. And I'm delighted to have this last event in the day to bring all of this together. This project was begun by Jim Payne, who approached me a year and a half ago, about developing a festival of song and narrative from Newfoundland and Labrador. Jim pointed out that the musical repertoire of the province is vast, but here in St. John's, only a small subset of songs get the lion's share of attention. The goal of the festival has been to make a start of remedying that situation, and I think that we've been very successful in doing that. It's been an honor to be able to present such a wonderful group of performers, and I look forward to tonight's music greatly. And now, without further ado, let me introduce our Master of Ceremonies for this evening, Mr. Jim Payne.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Harry, and welcome everybody. It's great to see you here. Just want to get some of the housekeeping stuff out of the way before we really get going here. So, first of all, I want to thank the Memorial University's Office of Public Engagement, which has provided some funding for us to put off today's events. I want to thank Harry, of course, who's the director of MMaP, the Research Center for the Study of Music, Media, and Place. As well as the research coordinator for MMaP, Joy Fraser, who's really worked like a Trojan on this event today, put an awful lot of work into it. Megan Forsyth, who used to occupy that position, but who is now an assistant professor of ethnomusicology here in the School of Music. And I also want to especially thank Eleanor Dawson, because while Harry said that I was the one who actually mentioned it to him, today's event and the whole thinking behind it was really a result of a whole bunch of conversations that Eleanor and I have had over the past couple of years about why something like today's events and tonight's concerts were necessary. We've had a bunch of ethnomusicology students helping out all day and here again tonight, and I just want to list them off now as well. Karen Berglander, Mariano Castro Corvallal, Kristen Doble, Eric Escudero, Ryan Ritter-Jones, Sarah Vandenberg, and Peter Verdon. So thanks very much, you guys, for all the work that you guys have done here tonight and today. Some of them are probably outside on the desk and they don't even know that we're talking about them, so if they feel their ears burning. One of the things, too, that outside on the desk out there are a bunch of forms, survey forms, so we'd really appreciate it if you have any feedback you'd like to offer us from today's events or tonight's concert. By all means, please fill out a form and just leave it out there on the desk so we'll have a look at it, because the idea is that once we do the post-mortem on this now over the next couple of weeks, we're looking at trying to make it at least an annual event. So as much feedback and any contribution that you can make about it, then that would be fabulous. Hang on to your tickets, by the way. There will be a door prize drawn for based on the numbers on your admission tickets at the top of the second act. Now, before I introduce our first guest, I noticed that some of you coming in today, you looked a bit anxious, and I can see it out there in your faces now. And I know what it's all about, because you're thinking, okay, this is supposed to be a festival of songs. When are they going to ask us to sing? And so I thought, rather than leave you in suspense, I thought maybe we'd get that going right away, and that way you'll be all warmed up then when somebody asks you to sing with them later on. Okay, now one of the great things about today is that there was a whole variety of songs, some really obscure songs and so on heard. But one of the things about it, that there's a couple of songs sung that sort of reminded me of other songs or other versions of the same song. And we had a bit of a discussion about that today. But Heather Patey sang a song over there this afternoon that she called Greedy Harbour. And so I'm going to sing a different version of that now, because it's, as I know it, as Grady's Harbour. And Grady's Harbour is a little fishing station just down below Cartwright. That means north of Cartwright. And I want you to sing the chorus with me on this one. The chorus goes, you can say these words if you like. To me it, to me knit, to me na na nee. Can you say that? To me it, to me knit, to me na na nee. John Dooley's punt, and two wah-wee. John Dooley's punt, and two wah-wee. So let's sing it a couple times. To me it, to me nit, to me non-nani, John Dooley's punt, and two wah-wee. See, there's nothing to it. Right, try again. To me it, to me nit, to me non-nani, John Dooley's punt, and two wah-wee. One more time. To me it, to me nit, to me non-nani, John Dooley's punt, and two wah-wee. Down to Grady's Harbour I went one time. I bought a punt from old man Ryan. The sea hove in, she run aground. I lost me punt, which cost £1. To me it, to me nit, to me non-nani, John Dooley's punt. And you know, I couldn't hear you, some of you that time. I forgot to tell you, by the way, it really makes a difference if you open your mouth, you know, when you're trying to sing. So you get that together and we'll be all right. So let's on to the second verse here. I expect a much bigger response. Think about it as, you know, tomorrow is Sunday. You're going to be in church, you know, giving chants back to the preacher and so on. Down to Grady's Harbour I went one time, picked up a jug I thought was mine. I thought was mine, I thought was wine. I gargled it down, 'twas turpentine. To me it, to me nit, to me non-nani, John Dooley's punt, and two wah-wee. I got a cow and she gives milk. I dressed her in the finest silk. I fed her on fine oats and hay. I milked her 19 times a day. To me it, to me nit, to me non-nani, John Dooley's punt, and two wah-wee. Down to Grady's Harbour I went one time. I shipped aboard with old man Ryan. The skipper and I could not agree. I spent a very short time with he. To me it, to me nit, to me non-nani, John Dooley's punt, and two wah-wee. One more time. To me it, to me nit, to me non-nani, John Dooley's punt, and two wah-wee. Lovely, give yourselves a hand. All right. So now that you got all the cobwebs out, so if anybody asks you to sing tonight, I'm expecting a big response. So now our first guest tonight is Ellen Power, and we're really pleased to have Ellen here with us tonight because she really comes from traditional music, or traditional song in particular, royalty in this province. Really, she's the powers of Southeast Bight. Some say the powers that be. I say the powers that are no longer with us, but they're still with us in a lot of their songs. And Mary Ellen, of course, Ellen's mother, who was singing over here today as well. So she really comes by her interest and her ability to sing all these songs quite honestly. And, you know, she was singing around here for a while, and she sang for a summer in Twillingate, I think, at one of the summer events they have going on out there. And just to give you an idea of you know, of how things have changed in terms of how we measure the value of education here in this province. The other year, Ellen went off to Toronto to go to university, and a bunch of us thought it was an absolute tragedy that she was going away to university and was going to be no longer around here to be singing. So we're really pleased to have her here with us tonight. So please welcome Ellen Power.
Okay, I'm going to start off with, I was going to start off and just launch right into the 13-verse tragedy ballad, but I thought we'd have a little, it would be kind of a dramatic switch. So instead I'm going to give you one in which everybody still dies, but the tune is happy. So this particular version of the song, it's called the Golden Vanity, and this particular version actually learned from a couple from Devon, but there are many versions of this song, and many of them also show up in Newfoundland. So this is the Golden Vanity, and it does have a refrain, and so please feel free to sing along. If you harmonize, it would fill my little heart with joy. So, once there was a man who was boasting on the quay, I have got a ship called the Golden Vanity, and I fear she will be taken by some pirate enemy as she sails on the lowlands low. On the lowlands low, as she sails on the lowlands low. The first one on deck was a little cabin boy. Captain, what'll you give me if the ship I do destroy? I'll give you gold and silver and my daughter on the shore if you sink her in the lowlands low. On the lowlands low, if you sink her on the lowlands low. Well, the boy made ready, and oh, overboard he sprung. He swam until he came to the pirate galleon, and with his auger sharp he bored 2 holes at once, for to sink her in the lowlands low. On the lowlands low, for to sink her in the lowlands low. Well, some were at the cards, and others at the dice, and some were standing round about and giving good advice. And then the salt water, it came splashing in their eyes, and they sank in the lowlands low. On the lowlands low, and they sank on the lowlands low. Well, the boys swam back unto the larboard side. Captain, take me up, for I'm drifting with the tide. I'll kill you if you come on board to claim my child as bride. I will kill you in the lowlands low. On the lowlands low, I will kill you on the lowlands low. If it wasn't for the love I bear for your men, I do unto you like the pirate galleon. Yes, I do unto you like I did unto them. I would sink you in the lowlands low. On the lowlands low, I would sink you on the lowlands low. Well, the boy swam round unto the other side. He called up to his messmates, and so bitterly he cried, Messmates, take me up, for I'm drifting with the tide, and I'm sinking in the lowlands low. On the lowlands low, and I'm sinking on the lowlands low. Well, his messmates took him up, but on the deck he died. They sewed him up in an old cow's hide. They lowered him overboard, and he drifted with the tide. And he sank in the lowlands low. On the lowlands low, and he sank on the lowlands low. Well done, folks. I was not disappointed. I was really hoping for harmony, and just bam. It was excellent. Now, I always do get excited when I have, there's the folk music events, and then there's the real, ballady events that I get really excited about, because I have lots of ballads, but I also have lots of really long ones. And as many people say that they would like to hear them, you'll be at a session, they're like, oh, you sing us one. And by the time you get to verse 10, the eyes are glazing over. People are going to get drinks. That's the worst about being a ballad singer. They just go get a drink, they tell you to sing, and then it's intermission. But, so I'm really excited to be able to sing one of the real long ones for you crowd tonight. And this one actually, I didn't learn it until I was away in Toronto, but it's actually one of my dad's songs. And I found it, I don't know if I was just homesick and Googling Newfoundland or something, but what came up was actually Voices of Placentia Bay, which is an online project that MMaP has up. And I found this recording of a song of my dad's that I had never heard before. So I did learn it, but a lot of ballads, for everyone that, comes perfectly formed from the sands of time, you have one that's fragmented, or there's a lot of places you have to fill in. So in this song, a captain goes away to sea, and his true love dies when he's away, and he comes back. But the verse in which he goes away and the verse in which he comes back are missing. And at the end of the song, spoiler alert, his true love dies in the workhouse, but up until the point that happens, there's no mention of her being there at all. So I defragmented what I could, and I actually combined this one with another version by a man named John Joe Leonard from Southern Harbor that was also in the folklore archives. And so this is my debut of Bold Captain Vincent. So. Oh, bold Captain Vincent belonged to the sea. He courted Maria he courted Maria, 'twas a long time ago. Now he's on the sea sailing, where the stormy winds blow. When the stormy winds blow, love causes my heart to ache, causes my bedroom window to quiver and shake. Who knows where my love lies when he's far from the shore? I'll pray for his welfare. What can I do more? Oh, bold Captain Vincent went out for a walk. Along came Maria for to have a talk, saying, "You're welcome home, Captain. You're welcome to me. No more to be sailing all on the salt sea." He turned it unto her, and this he did say, "Oh, let us be married before I go away. Get married, my age is too green. It was only last Sunday I was turning 19. He put his hand in his pocket, and a purse out he drew, and 19 bright guineas on the table he threw, saying, "Take this, Maria, go and live at your ease, but love, don't forget me when I'm crossing the seas." As bold Captain Vincent walked up London Street, one of his old shipmates he chanced for to meet, saying, "Come with me, Captain, if it's company you'd find. I know 6 pretty fair maids that would soon change your mind." "Oh no," says the captain, "they will never change my mind, for I've courted Maria for a very long time. Yes, I've courted Maria, and I'll make her my bride, but she's gone to some workhouse for to pull down her prime." He went to that workhouse so late in the night, and he called on Maria, his own heart's delight, but the answer came to him, "She was poisoned last night." Oh, show me the room where my true love does lie. Oh, show me the room where Maria it, I'll die. They showed him the room where he viewed her so fair, a bunch of blue ribbon he tied up in her hair, saying, I always loved you, and you loved me too, but now I'm quite willing to die along with you. He put his hand in his pocket, and the purse out he drew, and 19 bright guineas on the table he threw, saying, buy me a coffin of the best you can see, but leave room enough in it for Mariah and me. Thank you. Well, thank you very much. The next one, I'll switch out of the minor key for a little bit, and I'll give you this next one, which is another one my dad used to sing. And this one, I guess it's fairly lighthearted. It's about a fella who is thinking about marrying a girl, and she says no, and then she changes her mind, but he's changed his, and then they just go their separate ways. So this is The Breaks of Straw Brain, which is how I learned it. And apparently it was originally The Breaks of Straban or something. Like, there's a bunch of different versions, but I always knew it as The Breaks of Straw Brain, so that's what it's called. One morning, one morning in May, it was down by a green bank I happened to stray. I spied a pretty fair maid who made my heart pain. She was making her way on the breaks of Straw Brain. As I was a-walking along the highway, I went up to this fair maid, and to her did say, for 6 months or better, love, it has run in my mind that we would get married if you were inclined. Get married, kind sir, I'm too young, and the most of you young men have a flattering tongue. My mother and father, oh, angry they'd be if I married a rover I'd be. He turned himself round with a tear in his eye, saying, I wish you a good one, whoever he may be. The skies, they look heavy, love, and I fear we'll have rain. So we shook hands and parted on the breaks of Straw Brain. Come back to me, laddie, and say you'll be mine, for the last words you've spoken have altered my mind. have altered your mind, love, but we're quite out of time. I must go find some other love and leave you behind. Some marries for riches, that's the proud-hearted way. Some marries for beauty, but beauty fades away. So whenever I marry, it's plain you might see that the one that I marry is the fair one for me. So the next one I'm going to sing, it's another one of the songs like I was talking about with Bold Captain Vincent. It's another one of those ones that I think is made up of parts of other songs. But it's got a beautiful tune. And this one I actually learned from the McEdward Leach Songs of Labrador collection. And if you listen carefully, you will hear a recycled verse in this song that is also in Bold Captain Vincent. So this is a ship in distress. There's a ship in distress, what a wonderful sight. Like an army of soldiers, all marching to fight. But a soldier can lay down his firearms and run, while a sailor's condemned to a watery tomb. When the stormy winds blow, love, it makes my heart ache and causes my window to quiver and shake. Who knows where my love lies when he's far from the shore? I'll pray for his welfare, what can I do more? Oh, Nancy, lovely Nancy, you're my own heart's delight. Now here is a letter I'm going to write. Now here is a letter for to let you know that I'm on the sea sailing where the stormy winds blow. Some men take up drinking, here's a health to their wives. Some men love their sweethearts as dear as their lives, but will drink and be merry with a full glass in hand. Here's a health to lovely Nancy, who I left on dry land. Oh, green grow the laurel, and the tops of them small, and love is a peril hangs over us all. But the leaves they will wither, and the roots will decay, but the red rose will blossom when my love comes from sea. Thank you. So this is a festival of ballad and story, and although I'm mostly ballad, I do actually have a few stories that come down from my father and my grandfather, so I thought I'd use this opportunity to tell one of my favorites, since it's getting close to Halloween and it is a spooky story. So this story is about a big storm that happened in Newfoundland. And it was a storm that happened in the 1930s, and it's called the August Gale. And now the August Gale actually shows up in a lot of other songs and stories in Newfoundland, because of course at the time they didn't have the sort of weather detecting radar that we had now. So when those big gales would roll in September and August, they had no way to be prepared for it. And so people would be out at sea, and of course many lives would be lost. So the August Gale that I'm talking about here was very famed in Placentia Bay because it struck very suddenly, so a lot of people were still out at sea. And so this is a story about one of those boats, a boat owned by the Lockyers, and what happened to the boat after. So the story is called the Lockyers boat. So a boat belonging to the Lockyers was one of the boats that was out just before the August Gale struck. And when the gale started to pick up and they realized it was going to be a big storm, they decided to head back to shore. But you see, of course, the big fishing boats would send out a bunch of dories, and the dories would fish, and they'd bring the fish back to the main boat, and they were still waiting, and almost all the dories had come in, but they were still waiting on one, and they didn't want to leave anyone behind, so they waited and waited, and they waited too long, and eventually, by the time they were ready to head back, the storm was too strong, and the ship was lost. But at that time, of course, the ships were wooden ships, and what would often happen was that the boat would sink, but it would sink just below the surface, and it would actually float because it was wooden. So this boat actually, when the waters calmed down and the winds calmed down, it actually floated back into shore. So of course they went to see if there was anybody aboard her, but the only person aboard her was a man who'd actually tied himself to the mast to try to ride out the storm. But unfortunately he had perished, and there was nobody else aboard the boat. So of course this was a huge tragedy for the families in the area, but in those days, you couldn't stop using a boat just because a tragedy had happened. People still had to fish because people still had to eat. And so they took the boat and they tidied her up, and they repainted her, and they gave her a new name, and the Lockers sold their boat on to a new crew. Now, the new crew hadn't had that boat that long before they started to notice something strange. Because every time the wind would start to pick up, they'd start to hear footsteps going back and forth on the deck. And then every now and then when the wind would really rise and it'd be howling around, they could hear the footsteps clattering to and fro on the deck. And of course, after a few gaily days, this really started to frighten the crew, hearing these mystery footsteps going back and forth. And they went to the captain and they said, "We're not going to serve aboard her if this sort of thing is going on. We don't want anything to do with a haunted ship." So the captain, being at his wit's end, he did what people did at that time in Placentia Bay, is he actually went to the priest about it. And he said, "Father, you've got to help me, because there's something strange happening with my boat. Every time the winds pick up, I can hear footsteps, and on the gaily days, I can hear the clattering back and forth. And, should I be worried? Is my ship possessed?" And the priest listened to the story, and he said, "Well, now," he said, "I can tell you exactly what those footsteps are," he said. "The footsteps that you hear on the deck of the boat are the footsteps of the men who were aboard the Lockers boat on the night of the August Gale. So when you hear their footsteps clattering on windy days, it's because they're reliving the last moments of their lives." "Now," said the priest, I'll bless the boat, but I don't want you to be worried about the footsteps, because those fellows, they're no harm to you, nor to anybody else. But I want you to keep one thing in mind," he said. "When the wind picks up and you hear a footstep or two on the deck going back and forth, that's fine. And when the wind's really howl and you can hear the footsteps racing to and fro, don't be alarmed, because they're not there to harm you. But," said the priest, "if ever a gale comes up and you don't hear those footsteps, well, you'd better make haste to the nearest port, because those men won't be lost twice." Thank you. So that story actually, it came to me through a long, convoluted process. But where that story actually came from, there was another fellow who was out in the August Gale by the name of Follett, and he was out on his boat with his sons, and they actually tied themselves to the mast of the boat, and the boat sunk to just below water level. So they were there, a couple feet above the water, tied to the mast of a floating boat. But they actually survived, and they rode out the gale for like 12 hours, lashed to the mast of that boat. And so one of his sons, who survived, of course, he was my grandfather's brother-in-law. So that's how the story comes down. So that's how I can tell you it's a true story. Well, I suppose I better give you something a little bit lighter now. I was thinking of all the ballads I was going to sing today, and I'm like, they really don't end well. And even if they end well, they're often in a minor key. But this is one that does end with true love triumphing, and this one I learned from, I think I learned it from Joe Byrne, actually. And this is one of my favorites because it has the best line ever, when the female in the song, to save her true love, suddenly whips out a pistol that she's been hiding in her pocket the whole time and throws it to him. And there's like a shootout, and it's just my favorite epic moment in ballads. just the mental image of the whipping a pistol out of her pocket. But anyway, so this is the young Riley. Come all young maidens, where'er you be, I hope a warning you'll take by me. I'm daily pining with grief and woe, since my love Riley to the seas must go. I went with Riley for to take a walk, along with Riley for to have a talk, but I was followed by my waiting maid. She told my mother every word I said. My mother called me immediately, saying, Sarah, Sarah, how can this be, that you're in love with a farmer's son? When your father hears it, he'll charge a gun. When her father heard this sad tale of woe, straightway to Sarah in a rage did go, saying, before you bring upon us disgrace, I'll have Riley banished out of this place. Riley was called for on that same day. He came to hear what they had to say. A steward fired from the laurel tree and scarred the shoulder of the young Riley. Then Sarah, Sarah from her pocket drew a loaded pistol and to Riley threw, and Riley fired so manfully, he shot the steward in the laurel tree. Then with my love Riley we ganged away. We were surrounded on that same day. We were surrounded by Lord Damon's crew. My love he fired and he brought down two. My father staked out his property. He thought to drive me to poverty, but lands and riches I will deny, and I'll beg the world with my Roman boy. Thanks. I've got one more, and this is one of my favorite genres of songs. It is the broken token song, when the true love goes away for usually 7 years and then comes back, and then the only way his true love can recognize him is by the broken ring he has. And again, this has a happy ending, although like sometimes you question, because the guy who's coming back and pretending he doesn't know her is sometimes kind of a jerk. And I don't know if I would just like lose the ring. I'm like, oh, they're broken. Oh, it's I don't know. But anyway, in this one, it does end happily. And considering all the, shipwrecks and people getting shot and stuff and dying in the workhouse we've had so far, I think we deserve a happy ending to this. So this is The Dark-Eyed Sailor, and it does have a refrain, so please join in. It's of a maiden so young and fair, walked out one evening to take the air. She met a sailor all on her way, and she paid attention, and she paid attention to hear what he might say. He said, "Fair maiden, why walk alone? The night is coming and the day far gone." She said as tears from her eyes did flow, "It's my dark-eyed sailor, it's my dark-eyed sailor, who's the cause of all my woe. 'Tis 7 long years since he left the land, a golden ring took from off his hand, broke it in two, gave a part for me, while the other lies rolling, while the other lies rolling at the bottom of the sea." Said Willie, "Drive him from your mind, a better sailor than him you'll find. Love turns aside and cold does grow, like a winter's morning, like a winter's morning, when the fields are white with snow." These words did her fond heart inflame. She cried, "On me you won't play no game. A man he was, not a rat like you, to advise a maiden, to advise a maiden, to forsake her jacket blue. His tarry trousers I'll ne'er disdain, but I will always love him the same. To drink his health, here's a piece of coin, for my dark-eyed sailor, for my dark-eyed sailor, still claims this heart of mine." Then half a ring did young Willie show. She fell distracted midst grief and woe, saying, "You're welcome, Willie, I have land and gold, for my dark-eyed sailor, for my dark-eyed sailor, Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Now, our next guest is Mark Manning. You might have seen on the poster it was supposed to be Aaron Collis and Mark Manning, but Aaron is stuck over in Nova Scotia because he was over for Celtic Colours, and at the last minute they changed the schedule on him. But we're really delighted to have Mark here. Anyway, Mark's from the Cape Shore, from St. Bride's, and I've heard him talk about sort of growing up, being immersed in a lot of the traditional music. As I'm sure many of you are aware, the Cape Shore is really a hotbed of traditional song. Throughout the province, has been over the years, really. In fact, I would go so far as to say that the St. John's Folk Festival here in Bannerman Park, that's been on the go for over 40 years now, really kind of got off the ground, really, with the crowd from the Cape Shore, because they were in here all the time. So it's worth noting that. These days, Mark is the frontman for the band Rum Ragged, who just released its fourth CD, called The Thing About Fish, and really pleased to have him here tonight. Please welcome Mark Manning.
I'm going to start you off with a song I learned from my Uncle Pat Dowie. A song called The Girls of Newfoundland. There's a girl in St. John's Harbour that I'm longing for to see. No one doesn't know that girl, my boys, half as much as me. She cried so when I left her that it nearly broke her heart. And if we ever meet again, we never more will part. She's the sweetest girl in colour that a poor boy ever knew. Her eyes, they shone like diamonds bright, they sparkle like the dew. You can talk about your mainland girls, but I've known none so grand. You'll find no girls to love you like the girls of Newfoundland. The summer winds are blowing and the starry nights are bright. I'd take her to the Nickel most every weekday night. And as we watched the pictures, I oft to her did say, I hope you don't forget me while I am far away. She's the sweetest girl in colour that a poor boy ever knew. Her eyes, they shone like diamonds bright, they sparkle like the dew. You can talk about your mainland girls, but I've known none so grand. You'll find no girls to love you like the girls of Newfoundland. The winter winds are howling, and I think it's time to go, to cross the briny ocean without a friend or foe. And when I reach that foreign place, I'll stand there on that strand, and I'll be proud to be back with my girl from Newfoundland. She's the sweetest girl in colour that a poor boy ever knew. Her eyes, they shone like diamonds bright, they sparkle like the dew. You can talk about your mainland girls, but I've known none so grand. You'll find no girls to love you like the girls of Newfoundland. Thank you very much, the Girls of Newfoundland. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here. Don't get a chance to, actually have a nice listening audience like this for these songs all the time. And it's much nicer than George Street. Thank you very, very much. But like Jim said, I come from the Cape Shore, and a bit of Placentia Bay and a bit of St. Mary's Bay on the Cape Shore. I come from St. Bride's myself, but I have my grandmother Nash she's grandmother Dowie when she married. She came from Branch, actually a place called Beckford that we settled to Branch. And my grandmother Manning, she came from Point Lance. She was a Crean. My grandfather Manning came from Coslet, he was a Manning, and my grandfather Dowie came from St. Bride's. So a bit all over. And I had to make a call today because this song comes from my great uncle Mikey Nash. And Mikey was alive in my time, and I used to get the opportunity to go up Big Brook trouting with Uncle Mikey, great Uncle Mikey. And he always sang this song among very many others, and he lived in Ontario, but he used to come home every now and again. And he always told me that when he went back up to Ontario, he'd go back into his recording studio, which he had in his house, and he'd record for me and send it down to me. What I didn't find out until about 2 months ago, his recording studio was actually a spare bedroom, and he had a tape recorder. He was that kind of fellow, But this one was a song that he used to sing all the time, and I was trying to figure out today, I had to make a call to figure out how I was related exactly to Frankie Nash, another fellow at home that used to sing this. But funny enough, Mikey Nash, Frankie Nash, no relation. They both sang the song, though. There's a song called Riley and I Were Chums that was actually written by Johnny Burke, but there's a lot of variants of it through Irish music you can find. And it's about two really good buddies. And one fella always ends up with the short end of the stick. One day as I went out for a walk, and myself and me chum Johnny Riley, the air it being a kind of damp, the weather rather dryly. Who's with you, Jack? The people would shout, says I, it's me chum Johnny Riley. Oh, Riley and I were chums, and we always shared black eyes and sugar plums, but never a hair we cared. When there was anything nice about you, could take my word. For when I was done, I handed it on to Riley. One day I picked up a watch and chain, going out with me chum Johnny Riley. O'Reilly always looked for his share, he was so awful shyly. Soon he saw by the glimmer of the glass that the watch was gold and the chain was brass. The chain went on to Riley. Oh, Riley and I were chums, and we always shared black eyes and sugar plums, but never a hair we cared. When there was anything nice about you, could take my word. For when I was done, I handed it on to Riley. Last Saturday night I took for a wife, the best man there was Riley. I thought she'd be the joy of my life, she was so awful shyly. Soon I found it was no fun, one day she chased me with a gun. I said, madam, with you I'm done, and I handed her on to Riley. Oh, Riley and I were chums, and we always shared black eyes and sugar plums, but never a hair we cared. When there was anything nice about you, could take my word. For when I was done, I handed it on to Riley. Oh, when I was done, I handed it on to Riley. There you go, Riley and I were chums. Thank you, thank you. Thank you very, very much. Uncle Mikey would be happy about that. But yeah, so like I said, come from the Cape Shore, and my grandfather's family also had some music in them, and my grandfather Dowie. They all had a song each, actually, and they used to sing them at weddings. And I thought it was only on the Cape Shore that ever happened, but this summer, the band that I play with, Rum Ragged, myself and Aaron and the boys were down in Milwaukee, and we met a fella from Minnesota who had the same exact tradition in his family. So oddly enough, but it's a tradition that comes from advice songs. And at the weddings, they gather up all the grooms on one end of her, and all the males and the groom on one end of her, and the bride and all of the ladies on the other end, and they would sing them advice songs. And each of my grandfather's brothers had one, but I only got one of them, unfortunately, and I can't get to find the rest of them. But it's a song that we put on the first album. It's a song called Save Your Money, which is something you don't have to do because there's a merch table just outside if you'd like to pick up something after this. It's a story and a true one that oft time has been told. Save your money when you're young. You'll need it when you're old. Now, if you are a single lad, I'll tell you what to do. Court and marry some pretty girl that you'll find fair and true. Be well aware that she'll play fair and never let her go. Stick to her when you are young. You'll need her when you're old. But if you are a married man, now here's what you should do. Support your wife and little ones as you have sworn to do. Stay away from the pubs and bars where liquor's bought and sold. It's there you'll spend your money, boys. You'll need it when you're old. Now once I was a handyman and quite a lively lad. I spent my money foolish until no more I had. And now I'm old and feeble, I'm wet out in the cold. I wished I'd saved my money, for I need it now I'm old. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That's a Jim Dowie song. I'm still looking for the other ones, but unfortunately none of my grandfather's brothers are still around to be able to get them from. And Charlie, the only one who didn't have a song, he's still alive, so there's something to be said about that. But yeah, so Aaron's not here, unfortunately. He's over in Cape Breton. But I tell you, we do have some fantastic accordion players here tonight, though, and Mr. Frank Maher is here. I'm very happy to see Frank. And Frank, Aaron was saying, I was saying to Aaron, I was like, I'm really happy to get to go see Frank Maher tonight. I don't know if I only got to see you once at your 80th birthday party. We were down at Aaron's pub. It was the first night that Rum Ragged ever played at Aaron's pub. But Aaron said to me, he said, the only accordion player you'd be happier to see now tonight if I walked into the door. I was like, yeah, that would be nice. Be okay. But this next song here now is a song that was sang by one of the Cape Shore's best, and he passed away this year. And it's not a song he sang very often, but it's one that I oddly learned. And it's a song about a fellow who dressed up too well to go to the dance. And as the boys, I guess whoever wrote it was probably jealous of him, I imagine, or something along the lines. But they were picking at him and saying he was a bit of a dandy to be getting all dressed up and caring about how well he was dressed and everything else. But it's a song called Thomas Trim, and a song that was signed by Mr. Gerald Campbell. I'm Thomas Trim, a swell young man, I'm out to promenade. I've got as fine a suit of clothes as e'er a tailor made. I am a very swell young gent, the girls think I'm okay. Oh, such a dandy dashing dude you don't see every day. Some people likes to work all day until the night repose. I goes for a promenade to show my pretty clothes. I am a very swell young gent, the girls think I'm okay. Oh, such a dandy dashing dude you don't see every day. Some people likes to go for a spin in an automobile slam jam, but I goes for a promenade to show how cute I am. I am a very swell young gent, the girls think I'm okay. Oh, such a dandy dashing dude you don't see every day. I'm Thomas Trim, a swell young man, I'm out to promenade. I've got as fine a suit of clothes as e'er a tailor made. I am a very swell young gent, the girls think I'm okay. Oh, such a dandy dashing dude you don't see every day. There you go, Thomas Trim. Thank you very much. It's a Gerald Campbell tune. The first, and funny enough, he didn't sing it very often, but there's a place in Branch called Bruce's Basement. That's what we call it anyway. The basement, Bruce's Basement. And people go there to sing. And if you're coming through Branch, if you keep on going past the store and you take a right, keep your eyes to the left. If there's a lot of cars parked in one place, it's Bruce's Basement. Stop in. We'll be more than happy to see you. He's not there all the time, but when he is there, it's a good time. But that song, actually, I heard Mr. Gerald Campbell sing that when I was really, really young, before I ever had the chance to know that I could sing, and nobody had taught me it, or whatever it was. I wasn't really taught, but now that I'm at the music school, I guess I can tell everybody I went to music school. They moved me over to the business school as soon as I came in from out home. I ended up finishing over there, but I always wanted to come here, so thank you very much once again for having me. This next one now is a song that's actually not traditional, but a song that we just recorded on our new album. And we were very, very happy to be able to release our new album on SingSong Inc., owned by Mr. Jim Payne over here. And we were very, yes, absolutely, well deserved. And we were even luckier, actually, I was down at O'Reilly's, I believe it was, and I ran into Fergus one day a couple of years ago. And I mentioned to Fergus about just if he had any old songs and stuff we were getting back into going on our third album, the Hard Times album that we done. And he said, you know what? He said, you should give Jim a shout. I said, absolutely, I'd love to give Jim a shout, but I'm not going to just cold call him up and say, can I have some of your songs? You know. And I sent an email to him, and he was more than happy to have us over. What we thought was going to be about a 20-minute session turned into about 2 hours and going through tons of songs. And the title track of the new album, The Thing About Fish, was also written by Jim, and he gave that to us during the Hard Times. But we recorded 2 of his songs, Flesh and Blood and Another Fading Light. And as soon as we finished the album, we were like, we should have done The Thing About Fish. We were like, sure, we'll record another one. May as well. And that's where that's due now. And we actually have it for sale just outside of here today. And all the proceeds will be going to getting Aaron home from Cape Breton. Yeah. But it's a song, this one right here is a song that was written by Dan Payne. And it tells a story of a hurricane that came to my hometown when I was 6 years old. And that's one of my oldest memories. I remember going down in my dad's Alumina down by the wharf and watching the waves come in. But it was a hurricane at the time called Hurricane Gert. And Dan read about it and also saw it on a CBC News and a CBC News bit and wrote this song. And it's been around for a long time. And I had no idea about it. When we were recording this album, Aaron brought it up to me. There's a song called The Wave That Hits St. Bride's. Oh, it's hard and unforgiving work for those who fish the grounds, and when the wind comes in a gale, there's danger all around. For 30 years I've worked the deep, the rolling waters wide, and in all my days ne'er faced a wave like the wave that hit St. Bride's. The wave that hit St. Bride's, me boys, the wave that hit St. Bride's. And in all my days ne'er faced a wave like the wave that hit St. Bride's. Oh, the ocean crashed and foamed that day, as in our helpless view our boats behind the breakwater lay, and the gale it stronger blew. Then like some ancient from the deeps, it rose before our eyes, and took so much with just a touch, the wave that hit St. Bride's. The wave that hit St. Bride's, me boys, the wave that hit St. Bride's. And in all my days ne'er faced a wave like the wave that hit St. Bride's. So here's to all the families who fish out of St. Bride's, and all who lost both boats and gear, all in that awful tide. May the fates above look down on them and be their watchful guides, and pray they meet no other wave like the wave that hit St. Bride's. The wave that hit St. Bride's, me boys, the wave that hit St. Bride's. And in all my days ne'er faced a wave like the wave that hit St. Bride's. The wave that hit St. Bride's, me boys, the wave that hit St. Bride's. And pray they meet no other wave like the wave that hit St. Bride's. Thank you very, very much. Thank you very much. And like I said, it's not a traditional song, but we're lucky enough in Newfoundland to have some writers who write in a fashion that you'd swear to God it was traditional. There you go. It's a Dan Payne tune that we have on the new album. I'm getting down to the end of my time, which I do believe. And I hope you're going to stick around after the intermission here. Nothing else to do on a Saturday night. And thank you very, very much for coming. And we're all going to return again next year when we have this festival, aren't we? We're all going to take one person each. There'll be twice as many here. That's perfect. There'll be twice as many here then. We all take one each. But I'm going to give you a short recitation. I've never actually, I guess, performed this live. When we recorded it on the Hard Times album, we wanted a 13 track because we thought hard times, bad luck. And we wanted a 13 track, and myself and Aaron had just finished up all the recording. We went down to some local bar, not even sure where it was, to tell you the truth now, it's a couple of years. And I was like, I'd love to have something from out home. And I ran into my cousin, Bruce English, Bruce's basement that we were just talking about. And I was like, as soon as I saw him, I said, the ragged jacket. I said, it's perfect for it. And it's a recitation that Bruce always said when we go to the basement. And it's a recitation that he got from Miss Aggie John. And I'll try my best with it here now. But funny enough about this, you have Mr. Dave Penny coming up, and our band Rum Ragged and Dave Penny have done a few shows together. And as soon as we recorded this on the album, and the album we got put out, Dave wrote us all in a group message, and he goes, boys, leave alone the recitations, they're mine. So we only done one, there's no recitations on the new one. So it's called The Ragged Jacket. Although I'm but a broken man, no, bye. That's the one thing I'm after forgetting here today. Would you be able to help me off at the start of it, Dermot? Dermot's from Branch. Although I'm but a working man, I live by honest labour. Content and health are all my wealth, with honesty to back it. My motives pure, although I'm poor, I respect the ragged jacket. Let others say whatever they may of broadcloth and those who wear it. It's not the coat that makes the man, but the deeds through life that bear it. And if you see a fellow man, if assistance he should lack it, do him all the good you can, though he wears a ragged jacket. All were equally born at first of this and every nation. The rich among the poor will be but for health and education. And when we're laid beneath the sod with 100 years to back it, who can tell which were the bones that wore the ragged jacket? It's an old recitation from, as recited by Miss Aggie John. Thank you. I got time for one more. Thank you very much for having me. It's a lovely festival. And anything that means that people get to sing the old songs and traditional songs and people get to hear them is definitely a good thing. So thank you very much for putting it all together here today as well. This is a song from the new album as well, a song that I heard when we went out to celebrate the life of Gerald Campbell. And we ended up in Dermot Power's house. Dermot's here tonight. And we ended up in the kitchen, and Eugene Mooney came up and sang this one. And I'd heard him do it before, and his father, John Mooney, or Jack Mooney, used to sing it. It's a song about working. So work, boys, work and be contented, as long as there's enough to buy a meal. For a man you can rely, he'll be wealthy by and by, if he only puts his shoulder to the wheel. I am not a wealthy man, though I've come upon a plan to make myself as happy as a king. And if you will allow, then I will tell it to you now. For time, you knows it's always on the wing. So work, boys, work and be contented, as long as there's enough to buy a meal. For a man you can rely, he'll be wealthy by and by, if he only puts his shoulder to the wheel. Will fretting make you fat? No, there's nothing gained by that. Assist yourself and fortune will help you. Tears are all in vain if you're defeated, try again. You will find it all the better if you do. So work, boys, work and be contented, as long as there's enough to buy a meal. For a man you can rely, he'll be wealthy by and by, if he only puts his shoulder to the wheel. Discontented people say that all work and little play will make a boy a blockhead as a rule. Well, you can answer them and say that no work and always play will make him both a blockhead and a fool. So work, boys, work and be contented, as long as there's enough to buy a meal. For a man you can rely, he'll be wealthy by and by, if he only puts his shoulder to the wheel. So work, boys, work and be contented, as long as there's enough to buy a meal. For a man you can rely, he'll be wealthy by and by, if he only puts his shoulder to the wheel. Yes, a man you can rely, he'll be wealthy by and by, if he only puts his shoulder to the wheel. That's it for me, folks. Thank you very, very much.